All right. Okay, so we shall start the process of creating the auto scaling group. And the first step here is to start by creating a security group. So we go here to navigate to security groups on the left. We create security group, and then we give it a name. I shall call it ASG Web Instance Security Group. And then description, let's give it HTTP allow. And then for the VPC, we shall select the VPC that we created before. Then when we scroll down to the rules, so the inbound rules, we shall add a rule which allows HTTP traffic from the load balancer that we created earlier. So this is the load balancer. We select the load balancer. Okay. So what we've done here is that we've selected the security group of the load balancer. This security group, which is going to host the servers, the auto scaling group, it is going to allow traffic from the load balancer, HTTP traffic from the load balancer. And then we shall leave the outbound rules as the default settings. No need to change that. And then finally, click create security group. Okay, so now that the security group is done, we can go ahead and create the launch template. For that, we click on launch templates. Then obviously we click on create launch template at the top right, and we give it a name. Let's call it web, right? And then a description, mention the web instances template, web only, right? So you can check this box here, to get guidance to help set up the template. Okay, so what we shall do is that we shall check this box. Then we scroll down, and now this is where we shall select the image to use, the AMI. So we select, okay, this is where we choose the AMI. And so we shall set my AMIs owned by me. And then obviously it's going to automatically select the one that we created last time, web server version 1. And these are the specs. And for the instance type, we shall use a T2 micro, which is free tier eligible. And then, so under network settings, we shall select an existing security group, which is the one that we just created for the auto scaling group, ASG Web Instance. All right, that's the security group that we just created. And then for the key pair, we are going to leave it as default. We are not going to include a key pair. And then for storage, we shall keep the default settings as well. No need to change anything. And so for the under advanced settings, let's set the IAM instance profile that we shall use. In this case, we shall use demo rule for EC2. So when that is done, now we can check the summary to look at the settings, what we've created. And we have the image, we have the server type T2 micro, the security group of our ASG, as well as the storage. All right, that being said, we can now go ahead and create the launch template. Okay, so we successfully created the launch template. So we can view launch templates. Okay, so this is, all right, this is the launch template that we just created. Okay, so we've created, now that we've created the launch template, the next step now will be to use that to create it, to set up the auto scaling group. You scroll down to auto scaling and click auto scaling groups. All right, this opens this window, and then to get started, we click create auto scaling group. We will give it a name, web auto scaling group. Then this is where we specify the launch template that we just created. Let's call it the web template. Now it displays all the properties of that template. And so we click on next to go to the next step. For the network options, we select as usual our virtual private cloud that we created. Then below that, under availability zones and subnets, this is when we shall select the two private subnets. The private subnet in US East 1A and the private subnet in US East 1B. Okay, because this is where the instances will be launched in the private subnets. Okay, when that is done, we can click next. Now we have the advanced options. So in this case, we have a load balancer, which we created, an application load balancer. So we shall check attached to an existing load balancer. This is the application load balancer. So we shall select this one. Then we shall leave this one as the default. Error checks as well as the default. Then under additional settings, since we want to use CloudWatch, we want to set up alarms. We are going to check enable group metrics collection within CloudWatch for monitoring. And then we can click on next. Okay, this is when we shall set the auto scaling group size. So our desired capacity will be 2 instances, the minimum 2 instances, and then the maximum 4. What that means is that at any point in time, we desire our capacity to be 2, and also it shouldn't go below 2. And then if it has to scale up, it shouldn't scale up to above 4 instances. Okay, so now we need to set a scaling policy, which is basically a rule to define how the scaling should be done, the threshold at which the system should either scale up or scale down. And usually we shall do it based on the metric average CPU utilization. So our target value will be 30. What that means is that when the CPU utilization goes above 30, that's when the system will scale up. When it is below 30, it scales down to the desired capacity. Right. So let's leave the instance warm up as the default. And then we click on next. Okay, so we are not going to add any notifications. So let's just click on next. Okay, so this is where we shall add tags. Let's add a tag. And then for the tag, the key will be name, and then the value will be ASG web instance. Okay, and then we click next. So now at this point, it's just for us to review all the settings to make sure that everything looks good. The name is okay, the launch template, good, the network settings, the subnets we selected are good as well. Have the load balancer. Since everything looks good, we now click create auto scaling group. It's going to take some time to update the capacity. Okay, so now we can view the instances that were created via the auto scaling group. We see that 2 instances have been created. One of them in US East 1A, yes, with that subnet, and another one in US East 1B. Okay, so since our ASG is now created using the launch template, and we see that the instances are running correctly, that means that everything is going very well, as usual. And so that brings us to the end of this lab for creating the launch template. We started by creating a security group for the launch template, which was this. And then we created the launch template itself, which is called web. And then lastly, after the launch template, we now created the auto scaling group. That auto scaling group, since it is launched, it now led to the creation of automatically creating 2 instances as desired. So we see that everything is working very well. And that brings us to the end of this section. Thank you very much, and see you as we proceed.